I know.
Great, it's live streaming. It's live streaming.
Okay. You're right.
If you want to do any introductions, I know for some places it's saying something different. It's up to you.
Okay, my name is Scott Barnum. I'm the president of PESPA.
Hi, I'm Val Smith. I'm the Board Education Association Regional Specialist.
I'm Brandy Hartine. I am editors at Southern Maine and executive chair for membership committees.
I'm Michelle Owens for the Senior Data Management Tech, and I'm on the executive board of PESPA.
Alicia McGinnis for Titus T, executive board of PESPA.
Joel Van Horn, organizer with Florida Education Association. Nice to meet you.
Jeff Friedman, Florida organizer.
And Kevin Felton, that's the PCTA staff.
Carly Spicer, senior compensation analyst.
I am Dave Richmond. I'm the director of payroll.
Gary Jefferson, chief financial officer.
I'm the chief human resource.
Nina Collins, executive director HR.
Well, thanks for coming back. I only thought there was a couple of places.
Yeah.
So, welcome back. So we gave you a salary proposal last time. Do you want to talk about that or counter to it, or?
I'm going to turn it over to Val Smith. Our funds.
Hey, we had a chance to group up after the last meeting and kind of look at a couple different things, and we have a packet, and we can hand you all the stuff at one time.
That's fine.
We'll walk through it, but before we do that, because I'm not as familiar with the functions and processes associated with your health insurance committee.
Sure.
Can you give me just a little bit of insight into what that process looks like, where it leads to? How close are we to knowing what adjustments will be made on premiums and things like that?
Yeah, well, so they're pretty dependent of each other, aren't they? Right? So we have as in the book these WBS studies. We have actually multiple committees that happen. So supplements to WBS or advisory. That's one that's required for us to bring together, look for consensus on any adjustments to healthcare. There are rules written in each of the contracts. It talks about for the employee portion of healthcare. the district paying 80% and the employee paying up to 20%, which is something we do our best. We've been above that honestly for the last few years. I don't want to go through the long, but we're ready to do that gladly for you. We passed out forms last time we talked about, we've met now multiple times for EWBS. So we bring representation from each of the groups. Usually it's a little bit bigger of an audience because people are very interested in that, right? Not that they're interested in salary, but it all does matter. And so I invite the groups together. Myself, Tanya Womack, who's the director of risk, is there as well. Our team pretty much stays the same. And so what we do is we garner ideas around how do we find a way to break even out there. And
You
so,
are self-insured.
yes, we are. Yeah. And we are self-insured for now. And I said that at the EWBS, I won't go in for too long, but I'll give you the high level and we can talk after if you so choose. Or come to the next session, which is next week. We've been running in the red for years. And in the red meaning we're spending many millions more. Yeah, and it's okay when you've got some fund balance and you've got some, our fund balance is depleted. So the state will require to have 25% of the annual premiums, annual cost, not just premiums, set aside in the fund balance. Usually gone for that. Now so we have zero fund balance at all. So Gary gets the joy of writing off to the state once a year to say, I know we don't have any money in reserve for our self-insured because that's required for self-insured, but I think we can scrape it out of operating if a catastrophic situation happens. He has to sign that off and send it to the state. I've only been in HR 18 months, but I've done my homework. And so when we were at EWBS 1 year ago, we were at the end of a year looking at spending $30 million more than we had, literally $30 million. And I commend the committee because at that point we're all rolling up our sleeves saying, that can't happen, right? And so when you were there and many other people were there, we can't do it. We just can't do it, right? Because not only do we not have a fund balance for specific for healthcare, we're the second lowest fund balance of any county in the state. 67 counties, we're the second lowest. And that's dangerous.
Financial emergency? Have you declared it?
No, not there, but we're paying attention. We got really good people. But we're close, right? So we want to make sure that we do that. So why do we say that? Because we can't continue to be millions and millions behind. So when EWBS a year ago met and our first proposal, we had brokers there, we had a lot of people there as well. And the first proposal was a plan to be only 30 more million short this year in the calendar year of 2026. We said it's unacceptable. So we made some plan changes, went from 4 plans to 3. We had deductibles for one group for the first time ever. We did everything we could do. We squeezed a little bit and we trimmed on the edges. Have to. And at the same time, we know healthcare is going to go up 15 to 20% next year and 15 to 20% the year after that. So we have to do. We kept premiums pretty similar to what we did, made some plan changes and pushed forward. At the end of EWBS a year ago, we were tracking to say, well, we won't be 30 million behind in 2026. We're tracking to only be 12 million behind in 2026.
So you close some of the gap, but you're
Right.
still, you're anticipating.
And when we go a gap, no fun, we go back into operating and take another 12 million and flush it out, which is what Gary has to do each year. So this year, we've been very careful with working with our claims and our data coming in monthly to take a look at it. We presented that a couple of weeks ago here as well, to say how we track it. And we're right now 11.9 million is what we're tracking for the trend. So we got the projection right. Congratulations, but the projection to be 12 million behind, it's not a good, that's just not balancing the budget. So we have now met with EWBS twice. We met to say, this is the status, this is where we're at, here's where the FPFP, here's money coming in. We have less kids coming. We have a lot of declining enrollment that's lending to less money coming in. He can go through the money that passed through the charters or the scholarship that needs to happen as well. But our 1% increase of budget from the state was more than chewed up, and $14 million we're going to have less of next year, in addition to the more money we have to pass out for FPS. So why do we say all that? So we at the second employee wellness subcommittee pushed out plans that would impact rates and would impact plan design. We actually had 2 different papers that went out that was really a conversation. It's hard. It is, nobody's happy about that. Like, yeah. The initial plan that we had, and I'm sure others brought their copies with them, was to do our best to keep employee only as low as we can, if not lower the premium that came out of their paychecks. People pay 20 paychecks. We do that over the course of the year, so I have to pay it in the summer, right? And we did that, but there's an increase to the others, right? There's a sliding, it's possible for family and for others. And so the rates that we looked at were increased significantly for family and or employee plus spouse that's not on plan. We have people that are on our plan that may be able to have another affordable option. That's your choice. We know we have to educate our people better. So what we left with last time was, this is a plan with plan design change and rate adjustments that we believe will get us to even for 2027. Not putting 25% in the bank, just even, right? Because it's the 12% we're behind this year, plus another predicted. So our claims data says that we're gonna predict to be 27 million behind next year. We just can't do that, right? So as I said in the first committee, and I'll say it again at the next one next week, is if we don't balance it next year, we won't be self-insured for 2028. We've committed to doing it for one more year, but we can't continue to do that.
How long have you been self-insured?
Since 2013.
It's been time, yeah, but it's gets smaller and smaller, and it's the money we have to work with. So we've asked for adjustments, not adjustments, but quotes on what it would look like if we weren't self-insured. It's not free, it's a 40% increase across the way. That's literally just saying, all right, I know what's our rates, if we were that at the time too. So we've tried every angle, we presented a lot of different things we're gonna try to take a look at. Some were brought up again. One of the unions at the last meeting said, hey, thank you for this. I don't like it, but could you try this? So Gary and I sat down today and worked through some things that we're gonna bring to them and say, you asked for this, here it is.
Okay.
I have another union that asked for something that's gonna give me some numbers tonight. We're gonna bring that back as well. So you'll see, this is what we said last time. We think can get us to the black. I say think because we can't predict.
Right.
I mean, we have pretty good projections,
Yeah, but high cost claims happen
and they do.
unpredictable, right?
And they are 80% of our costs, right? And so we'll have another one that was suggested by the PCTA. I think SEIU made a suggestion. We're gonna present that as well. We're gonna bring several different options, all designed to get to even. But
Okay.
does that impact us? Absolutely.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. Because when we bail out the general fund, which is what we've been doing year over year, deeper and deeper, that impacts how much we can get to people in salary, right?
Right.
But thankfully, we've been able to keep it, the percentage of the claims, excuse me, the premiums that the employees pay for all plans, less, particularly on the employee, than we're required to. So how much do you want to raise it?
Right. Yeah, so I know that there's work to be done then still in your insurance committee.
The answer is
Because
yes, yeah.
Is continuing to work on it. So there's nothing really finalized for us to say, here's how we mitigate or deal with that in
There,
salary
and-
discussion. Okay, so with that in mind, and knowing your next meeting is when?
Wednesday next week.
Wednesday.
You got my calendar up?
Mm-hmm.
3 p.m. Wednesday, right here.
Okay.
I think it's very informational. It's been a good, it's a hard conversation to have. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've been party to health insurance committee meetings in different counties before, and the process and what it looks like varies somewhat from
Yeah.
county to county.
Yeah.
You all are dealing with 4 different bargaining groups.
Yeah, and last year we came to consensus of the plan change and we signed on that. We want that later on as part of the salary packages approved by the board, which happens in the fall. We like to get to where we say, we don't like it, we don't agree that we have to make the change. Now, I commend some of the associations last year because we were sitting there thinking of 30 million, like, well, I mean, what are we gonna do? We can't do that. Some of them raised their hand and said, we're gonna have to dig a little deeper because nobody wants to not be self-insured. Nobody. The employee, groups, us, none of us want that. But we do have 3 different plans. There are different rates that go along with that. And the most important thing we can do any year is to make sure the employee makes an educated decision. That's what matters. And we have a lot of conversation about that too. Sooner we can come to a consensus that says, this is the best we can do to break even, we can start to work on communication strategies through healthcare because we've got to get a lot of promotional opportunity and plan for open enrollment. So that was a little bit more time sensitive salary, but depending.
So when is typically the decision comes out of the EWBS or the recommendation comes out of EWBS? August?
Typically late summer, sometimes sooner. Last year, we started EWBS significantly earlier. And it's fine. We started in April. We dragged and dragged. We met a couple times, and paused. We picked it back up again in July. Because we're like, it's a little too early to make this decision. I'm glad we did, right? because it was too early with projections and where budgets were coming from too. And this one particularly, since we had plan design a year before. So we went from 4 plans to 3. So the impact and disruption, the change is significant. Right? So we need to see month by month by month of how we're tracking. How does March look compared to the March before? How many months into the year can we get good data to make good projections? And thankfully, it's projecting where we're at, but still 11.9 behind based on the last. So, but that was as we anticipated. So we have enough to know to make the decisions now. I anticipate a couple more meetings on that. It could drag on a little bit longer, but the longer it goes on, the less likely we are to give enough time to really tell people. Think
Yeah,
through
the
what we're
education
doing.
window is short.
Our groups worked together on doing that. Heck of a job last year, so just good.
Okay, well, all of that in mind, and I didn't mean to push you into the realm of having to walk all the way through everything insurance related, but when we met as a team, the conversation was pretty much squarely focused just on salary proposal.
Sure.
And because we don't know what changes may come from insurance, we started with, we need to respond to the initial proposal from the district with something that will meets the needs of our members. And so I'm going to share with you a packet and walk through the entire proposal beginning to end, and then we can just discuss as we go. So I could be mistaken, but I believe that the last time we met last week, Scotty made mention of having interest in taking a look at language items. And something that was specifically referenced was Article 19, terminal pay. I didn't see it passed, physically a proposal passed at the table, and so I just brought that. That's the first document.
So, yeah, there wasn't one provided. It was verbalized. I asked
Right.
Scott to send it to me and you emailed it back that evening. So I had received it.
Okay, so this was just, I wanted to make sure it had been officially shared at the table and that what we are requesting is clear in keeping with Florida statute, which allows for terminal pay at year 13 to be granted 100%. That would be the ask.
Right. And so it's not an open book here. So we would have to agree to open the article, and at this time we're not going to.
Okay, and there's presumably, because this is a money item, it does obligate the district to prepare for payout, right? Does the district, could you just clarify, does the district have to anticipate and budget for the liability of accumulated leave time?
It does.
For every day, you have the value of an anticipation of payout?
We do, we do not set those funds aside. We do report those funds as part of the annual reporting. The ACFR lists that compensation balances. And then, but no, we do not set those funds aside. They're paid as they're used.
So do you, I'm assuming as part of the typical budgeting process, you look at year over year, kind of what sort of payouts are happening for terminal leave pay?
We do budget for terminal pay. Yes, we do.
Okay.
As part of the general payroll
Sure.
analysis.
So it may be helpful to inform the continuing look we might want on the terminal pay to know kind of where do people typically break out? Where, at what point, at what experience band, year band are people receiving terminal pay? Are most of the employees that get terminal pay paying out at 100%? They're paying out at a lower? I just think that maybe it might help inform any continuing discussion about the viability of this as a proposal. And so maybe what we'll do, we'll send just a follow-up request in writing so that we have it.
Yeah, if I got that, would be great.
Okay.
One other question, what about people who leave the district? Like, number of years ago, they're sick, if they have accumulated sick time, whatever happens to that, was for,
It's there if they return, it's not paid out.
I know, it's not paid out, unless they retire, or,
So it's kind of a reporting item at that point.
And they can send it to, if they move to another district, they
Right.
could transfer it as well.
okay, yeah, my girlfriend's in that
Yeah.
position, but she hadn't transferred from 2017.
Well, I don't know about her situation, but I know the
I know.
ability to move money around is there, and it sits in the event that someone returns, they're still waiting for them, but if you.
It remains an obligation is what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, just in the follow-up questions, so we can inform future
Yeah,
discussions.
and when we get that, we'll look for that, we should be able to pull that. Yeah, probably a couple of years back, depending on how you frame the
That
question.
would be great. That would be great.
If I could just tell you, it's a variety. We also have people who drop,
Yeah,
that they get their sick leave paid out while they're still in drop. And
Right.
based on all kinds of different years, so.
yeah, so I don't know if it's true in Pinellas County or not, but it seems like we have more aging people approaching retirement. They kind of come in waves, right? And so being able to anticipate what may be significant payouts and watching those trends, is that something you actively do as part of budgeting?
It's part of that calculation. There are funds that are specifically budgeted as part of payroll and benefits to account for that.
Do you know who may be coming due for payout?
I know that we go at that level,
Okay,
but there is some calculation that's
Yeah.
done. That's important.
It has the rule that you have to go back and it's a whole, it's a whole complicated thing and kind of figure out what, like we're saying, what the anticipated.
Well, yeah,
amount
two
based on-
pieces. That's the compensated balance. That's going to be for the ACFR. That's going to be reporting as far as like a financial statement that says what's our fiscal wherewithal.
Right.
And then there's the separate, which is the annual budget. And so we have to say that for next year, there's going to be a certain $7 or $8 million that we're going to pay to people as part of terminal pay. And that's just included in each of the line items for the specific payroll item.
That was done in July. That you paid out this year already, as of July.
It's paid out throughout the year as
people
people
retire.
actually retire.
And that'll drop, transfer, we do,
Right.
that's the annual drop.
Right,
Transfer happens every month. Yeah.
yeah, just would like to make sure we understand implications of our proposals.
Appreciate that.
The second page is our opening salary proposal, and I think it's broken into 3 parts in an effort to try to respond to the areas of concern that were expressed by the bargaining team. I want to make note that, as you all know, because you know Pinellas County, Consumer Price Index puts y'all in the best of the best, 3.2 year-over-year increase in cost of living, outpacing most of the state of Florida and most of the nation as well. That 3.2% was
I
headed.
like to look fast. That was
Yeah.
great.
Well, listen, you try to put the silver lining on it, right?
It's the
But
best.
it's definitely a challenge, right? For the folks that are working in the schools and who are, of course, every year making decisions of their own about their household budgets. And so we took into account the 3.2% CPI and understanding that last year the salary increase settlement was for 1%. Without consideration of what may be happening with insurance increases and that sort of thing this year, our request is for 4.5%. We estimate that to be 2.77 million. That's including the fringe, which I believe you told us last week is calculated at 22.24%. the estimated cost was based off of the salary roster that you provided last week. Thank you for that information. When we sifted through that salary roster, we adjusted the number of employees by backing out people that were duplicate records simply because they're split across multiple positions and multiple jobs. So it's actually 1877 employees on that roster, and that footnote does not account for the unfilled vacancies. And I understand, I know that HR has a practice of budgeting, you have the whole, but there were a variety of positions there, and I can't begin to guess exactly how much you hold for each one of those varying positions. I looked at the list that you sent of vacancies, and it looked to me to be right at about 38, maybe 40 positions that are part of the PESPA unit. So those are not part of this calculation.
Understood.
Okay. We have folks that on our salary schedule start at $15 an hour. We have folks on our salary schedule that are above $20 an hour. And when you calculate a percentage increase, you get a pretty wide range of outcomes for people. As you had presented your proposal to focus on presenting the average based on the full-time 6 hours or more, that's the chunk that we took a look at. And for a 4.5% increase, you'd be looking at a minimum of $793.80 and a top maximum of $26.10.12. The average then, which is averages don't tell you a whole lot in a situation like this because of the distinct differences in how people get paid based on their job roles, is $11.21. And I tried very hard to stick very closely to exactly the roster data that you gave me without anything crazy in the calculation. So the team had discussed the need for living wage increases in salary that can be continuing forward and guaranteed. Cost of living, of course, is going to keep going up. We may have other expenses to consider this year. So 4.5% is what they felt comfortable asking for.
So there's a couple of notes just on my side. As far as the comment as far as the CPI index, Pinellas compared to other counties in the state, I would note that if you were to look at the FESP calculation, the funding calculation the state provides, this year, they basically said that Pinellas was no more expensive than the average for the state.
Yeah, I don't know what they're looking at when they
I'm
do that, because
sure
I'm
that's-
looking at Bureau of
When
Leadership.
we talk about funding for
Right.
the school, which is funding for increases, funding for everything throughout the district. The state does not acknowledge that there's any material difference in the cost of living in Pinellas County as compared to any average county in the state. And so I think it's important to know that the district gets $114,000 in additional funding for the valuation differences in that CPI. And so effectively, there's no funding that's brought. So I don't know that we can say that that's a fair discussion when the state won't support. You're giving ancillary data, but the state, we're using the state number for this discussion. So I just want to make that as a statement.
Yeah, and I didn't use the 3.2 CPI as a point of comparison to how you are funded, because if you want somebody to tell you exactly how this state has served you wrong by the way that they funded our public schools, I will preach it all day long. What I can speak to is the cost of living, what it takes to rent an apartment in this county, what it takes to pay for a tank of gas to make the commute up and down this county. And that's what our people feel. So I understand completely what you're saying. I understand that it was a 1% overall thereabout increase in your funding.
It was, and we had about that much in funding, that was required to be paid for the teacher supplemental allocation. And so when you remove that portion from the funding that we got,
Earmarks that can only be spent on teacher salaries because the
That's
state
correct.
again
So
doesn't
the
provide
large-
specific earmarks for our support staff.
so the largest portion of our increase, right, substantially of all of our increase has been assigned by the state for this reason. So when we talk about there being increases of anywhere, and when you take that into account with the insurance situation that we're in, I think that it's just important that we put a lot of this in very specific context. I did want to make one other comment that you had said that there was a 1% increase last year for increases. And I would say that last year was the first year that support staff was included in the referendum, and that the support staff did receive $2,910 in additional income plus benefits for everybody received that. And so I believe it's imperative that we include that dollar amount when we talk about the increase, because if you look at the salary that they had before and the salary that they had after, it was $2,910 plus a 1%. And I would say that when we talk about referendum funds, that is general operating. You look in our budget, and again, it'll be posted, next year's budget will be discussed at the July 28th board meeting. Referendum funds are general funds. They are paid by the local residents, just like 3/4 of the entire FEFP budget from the state is paid by local residents. So as far as if the local residents are paying this piece or this piece, they're funding our schools. And it would be remiss to say that that $2,910 is not an increase.
So, and we can talk about the referendum. We actually addressed that in our proposal, but you do have a memorandum of understanding for the increases that come by recalculation of property taxes for the local referendum will be passed on in automatic increases applied to the bargaining units, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I will never say that those are not real dollars. I will never say that those are not real compensation. But what I will say is that it is not salary. And that in 4 years' time, should the referendum not be renewed, what happens to the money, the 2,900 or the additional 500 that's going to be added in this year? What happens to that portion of compensation?
The end of the referendum,
Disappear from where?
everyone, we wouldn't get another
From
referendum.
paychecks. It would be a loss in a paycheck. By the same token, I did include a copy of that MOU in the back of the package, just because this is really not very different from the way the referendum agreements are written everywhere, right? The employees could be subject to having their referendum pay, I believe we refer to it as referendum retention income, reduced in the event there is a backslide. Even if the referendum is renewed year over year over year over year, every time it comes up on the ballot, if property taxes go backwards, if what is collected goes down, will people's paychecks be reduced?
It would be divided accordingly based on how much we receive, right? And we've had referendums for many years and it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Thankfully, there's confidence
Mhm.
in the school district enough to pass that by a large margin.
Mhm.
And they did so just recently, even
Mhm.
though many folks stuck their neck out and say, let's try for a full mill instead of a half mill and include support staff in it for the first time ever.
Right.
Right, 15% is set aside specific to support staff. And that was by design, because we knew that the dollars coming from the FFP were not going to continue to provide increases, let alone any even stability to income, right? And so, knowing that, no one predicts it's going to happen at the next one in 3 years, but it's passed in a healthy margin because the voters have great confidence in Boston schools.
Yeah, and the track record's pretty good. I mean, if we're looking across the state, right, the track record's pretty good for renewal, not always, but most of the time.
I think you just have to, think that the district always has the employees at nearly the top of its requirements, other than the statutory or fund balance requirement. Right, that is likely, should be given. But there is never a guarantee that when we were talking about property tax adjustments, that the laws a while back. There's always a discussion or a thought that goes through your head, what would happen if this happens? And what would happen if you?
Isn't there a very real question hanging out there right
What
now?
would happen if your tax base went down by a third?
Right.
You may have to make adjustments to people's compensation to keep a school district.
Correct.
So to say that the ref is really a different scenario
Mhm.
than what could happen in our real everyday lives
Mhm.
is a complicated discussion, right? But it's hard to say, well, the ref is going to go away and we're going to lose that income. What if 6 other scenarios happen, right? That we never want to think about it.
Sure. Sure.
So
But we
we
haven't-
just say that as
Yeah,
like trying to be
no.
really upfront and honest. about
Absolutely.
these really hard decisions.
And again, I will always say, these are absolutely real dollars. This is true
Is this
compensation.
number not include ref and just as where is this
It-
4.5%?
It does not. It does not. So you'll see, we can go ahead and skip to number 3, because that was the third part of the proposal. Actually, you got ahead of me. We just would like to make clear in our proposal that increases to the referendum retention income continue to be defined according to the MOU, which is good for 4 years. And it clearly states, quoted directly and gave you that it is to be treated in addition to annual adjustments made to salary and benefits, which are negotiated annually through the collective bargaining process. Our team, I'm just telling you, there's a sentiment that you should be aware of, right? That when presenting a proposal that puts those referendum dollars, the increase in that's already been agreed to be accepted as part of the risk, it could go backwards next year. There is something of a distaste for people that is not a true salary adjustment. It is a temporary. This year is, we're grateful for the additional compensation, but it doesn't become embedded as a part of people's permanent salaries. I'm carrying that message to you so that you understand the sentiment when we try to break it out in the proposal. That's why people expressly believe the agreement has been made on referendum supplement.
So when you look at a 4.5% increase, not including referendum,
Mhm.
did your group come up with or propose any ideas for where the district would find the additional funds?
Presumably that's the work we would do here in space. Is your budget finished? Is the budget?
It'll be posted on July 20th, or it'll be posted on Tuesday.
Okay. And it may be much easier for us to talk about once we
Sure.
have some budget numbers to take a look at. Our goal was to make sure that we provided a proposal that gave you a very clear understanding of what our bargaining unit members are telling us is the impetus.
And we would just say that 80% of our money that we get from anywhere goes into salaries and benefits.
Mhm.
And so that's the likely offset to increases.
But we have no doubt there will be a counter proposal. We fully expect that. I'm gonna jump back to point number 2 in our proposal, because this is something that in our discussion, we did take time to go back and look at the salary schedule D, which I included a copy in your handouts. Many of the locals that we work with have traditional salary schedules whereby support staff receive automatic steps. The salary schedule is built in such a way so that the difference in levels is equalized so that people who maybe aren't making as large a paycheck can at minimum anticipate modest increases each year to offer them a greater sense of economic assurance. I don't know how to say it other than to say, we looked at the possibility of requesting step increase as our proposal. However, in taking a look at the data that was provided, the next page in your packet is a matrix that was built using the current salary roster. We identified where we have folks sitting if we were to award a step. And we also identified the value of each step. And in doing that work, we feel it's not an equalized schedule that lends itself easily to offer step increases to folks. There are places where salary has been compressed across pay grades, and particularly pay grade 5, there are 6 levels at which the increase is 4 cents. Presumably, the levels are intended to represent experience, assuming that that's what the levels are for, since when people come in the door with experience, they may be placed a little higher on the schedule. Is that true?
Yes.
So what we are asking in our proposal is that we make use of the opportunity of open book, which is coming up. We put together a salary schedule review committee to meet. Fixing something like this, which we've worked in other districts to do, to equalize and make the schedule a little more palatable to offer those recurring adjustments, takes work. It cannot just be wave a wand and it's fixed. And it may be that we need to create a plan that would allow us over, a 2-year period or a 3-year period to adjust specific steps minimally to get to where we need to be so that we do have an equalized step schedule that maybe offers the assurance of opportunities for salary growth for people and rewards experience. And so our recommendation would be that that subcommittee meet during the 26-27 school year, taking a look at remedying compression in the salary schedules, making necessary adjustments to ensure positions have been appropriately placed. We want to do what we can to equalize those steps, or at least make them a little more equitable and representative of experience, and then have that committee provide recommendations to be considered during full book negotiations in the spring of 27. I'm not sure when the last time was that kind of work has been done around the salary schedule. So, it's been a minute.
At least a decade.
Okay, well,
And
maybe
then-
it's time.
Yeah, and that was when we had ranges.
Got you.
And then we heard from the group that they really wanted to see a schedule.
Mhm.
So then we switched to this,
Got you.
at least a decade or 2.
So if I had to guess, the wonkiness on pay grade 5 was the $15 an hour mandate that came without any additional funding from the state?
Well, it's 5, 6, 7, but we've been working towards that.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I also noticed in the roster that you provided, there's I don't think any of our folks on pay grade 6. Is that
Probably accurate, yeah, I think most of your 5s are your bilingual assistants, I would say are your bilingual assistants.
I think so.
Yeah,
I guess.
and then your major group is like your 7s and 8s, yeah.
Yeah, we just saw the opportunity that I think this is something that folks would have a desire to see addressed. We can work on that schedule and tidy it up a little bit. It may actually assist you in attracting people in some of these positions as well, so that when they're coming in the door with experience, the difference is not 4 cents from somebody who's not coming in the door with experience.
For retention even. Just keeping them.
We have an interest.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anything else to share?
That's pretty much it. Our priority, I believe, at this point is to focus on doing the very best we can on salary adjustments this year. We know that folks are hurting and want to see something of substance. And we know that there's also a lot of work yet to be done on health insurance, which may become a factor. Also, no, just side note, doesn't impact us, but we know that the teachers have their own set of circumstances driving negotiations, and that the TSIA funds have to be, not TSIA anymore, I don't know.
We know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so that those have to be settled by the end of this month, or an expedited impasse and yada yada. Who knows what that's gonna look like. We are interested in seeing what happens in health insurance and continuing our conversations around salary.
So with that, well, it's not gonna reach that this time, we're gonna pause. And so would you like to set a time for this group to come back together later? Do you want to pause until after the EWS is moved on? That's, I leave that up to you.
Yeah,
I think after we come to a conclusion of health insurance, then we'll be able to move forward.
That's good. So our next health
Then
committee is Wednesday.
so we'll reserve scheduling a return to bargaining until after health insurance committees completed their work.
Go when you're ready.
May we also get electronic copies of anything you sent out this year for bargaining and insurance? Of all the documents, can we get electronic?
I gave everyone the paper copies.
Okay,
I
I
haven't passed them out electronically, so
okay.
that's for you. You can take it, scan it. send it to
It's
me.
hard to read when it's scanned, because font so small and the background blends in.
Sure. So you're talking EWS?
I think
EWS
just
and
that one he was talking about with the blue background, the deductible increases,
it's hard to
the
read.
plan,
The plan change.
yeah,
Yeah.
this one.
Got it. Let me see what I bring for next week. Because people had some suggestions for that, for option. And then we'll do the talk quest and see what we push it up on town. But I gave literally every single person.
I know.
Copy.
I do know.
I rolled a couple trees on that one as well, and so bring the copies back in time, which I think is good stuff. But at the same time, though, we'll have another update for that on Wednesday. And so I encourage you to bring those back as you get started with that conversation. I'll wait to ask for PESPA to come back to continue the salary conversation until after you're comfortable with the direction of healthcare and the deadlines.
Yeah, it'll help inform our conversation.
Right.
You have a sign-in sheet around here somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Oh, okay. Anyways.